Good morning, everybody. It's earlier than normal. You're not wrong. This is Grant from State of the Spark. Oh my gosh, it's a chilly morning, so I got my sweater on and I'm not representing. Oh my Lord. It's a lovely Friday morning, and we just wrapped up MSPBA. Go back and watch the videos. We're going to load them to the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group. Fantastic series, and I'm super glad we did those. And we covered how to launch your business and how a client moves through the business with you like that. This morning, I am so happy and grateful that I'm sharing a cup of gratitude with you lovely people and the impact you're making in the world. And I'm so glad, actually, for today's show, because we're going to be talking about coaching. That's right. We're going to be talking about coaching. I got a call from a successful businesswoman that I know, and she's traveled the country and she's built her several businesses all over the country, and also then chose to live remotely with her kids. And then she called and said, "Hey, I'm going into coaching and I need some advice." And you guys know that State of the Spark is all about igniting lives of explosive significance. And yes, we have the website company, and yes, we have the bookkeeping company, and yes, we help with messaging and training and Spark Explorer and taking people outside. All of that is to facilitate you lovely people who are influencers in your topic. And we're trying to actually build the tools and training and support to help you get your message out there. Because if we're going to ignite 1 million lives of explosive significance, that means we need to activate 10,000 coaches, trainers, authors, influencers, or mission-driven entrepreneurs. And that's what you are. And that's what this lovely person reached out and asked about. And she asked me this question and basically gave me the setting and let me know, hey, I'm looking at spending, this budget, this 5-figure budget on ads and setting up my first webinar. Is this where I should start? And I'm going to tell you what I told her: do this, not that. You remember that book series, Eat This, Not That? We actually covered Do This, Not That, the 4 things that I just gave her on our coaching call of how to get her up and running, and even how I had personal revelations from that call together about coaching in general. But before that, we've got other news, and before that, we've got a lovely cup of gratitude. Let's do this thing. Let's share a cup of gratitude. And I want to hear in the comments, what are you grateful for, my lovely people? Let's do this thing. Let me actually ask that song. What are you grateful for? Boom. Ask that question right there. Here we go. What I am grateful for is Excedrin and Aleve. I am so grateful for Excedrin and Aleve. We had this cold front come through Florida, and it was a big cold front for us. And the temperature is chilly outside, and it knocked me on my butt. I get migraines now and again, and I am so grateful for Excedrin and Aleve and owning our own business, and Marissa taking me home and letting me take a nap and recovering from that thing. And I am also thankful, so thankful, and I've said this before in the last week or so, I am so thankful for Word Runner and the Word Runner function and Amazon Kindle that allows me to read. Today, I was reading at 425 words a minute. Phenomenal reading life hack. So I am grateful for Excedrin and Aleve and Word Runner. What are you grateful for? Heather says, loving it. So Heather actually is the one that prompted some of my my framework. And after we got off our call, I recovered from my migraine. And Heather, FYI, while we were on the phone, my eyes blacked out with floaters from my migraine. And what are you doing up so early? Heather's on the west coast of the lovely United States. You should be in bed. Maybe you're going to bed soon. You actually are. It's probably 2 a.m. and you should probably be going to bed soon. So Heather actually prompted the inspiration for today's show. And you're going to see awesome things coming out of Heather. And I don't know what I should say or not say, so I'm not going to give her message. I'm not going to share that too soon. I'll let her do that. But I think it's a great message. But regardless of that, we were talking about coaching, and I kind of, after our call, I summarized what Do This, Not That is going to come. But before that, we've already shared what we're grateful for. I'd love to hear what y'all are grateful for. Go ahead and share it in the comments, and we are going to go on to other news. Here we go. 3D printing with Lunar Dust. Yes, you heard it here first. Heather says, oh my goodness, haha, it's 3:18. We just pulled into our driveway from out of town. Yes, I'm willing to bet I cannot imagine driving overnight like that in the cold. I would be passed out. I'd rather have a hot cocoa. That was Heather saying she's just driving just now. Share away. We'll catch the replay. Good night. She says, share away. We'll catch the replay. Good night. That's where I would be. I would be headed to bed. Have a great evening, Heather. So she's given me permission to share a little bit about her message. Leave that guy. Oof, hang on. I'll unpack that once we get to coaching. There's more to that than you'd realize. So 3D printing with lunar dust. So what's going on? The last time people walked on the moon, was 1972. There's been a lot going on with the moon lately, specifically China and the US, and there's kind of a new technological space race, a new private space race of sorts going on. Right now, America has the Artemis project where we're sending people back to the moon. And a lot of the dialogue about moon bases is how are we going to build a moon base? It would be very expensive to send a ton of construction equipment, a ton of construction materials to the moon. But the dialogue right now has turned very proactive to actually turning moon dust into a concrete-like material. So that for those who don't know, when we think about the moon, we think that it's light and fluffy. And actually, when we first sent people to the moon, we didn't know if it was so lightly packed dust that our astronauts would fall into for miles and miles. We didn't know if it was solid like we know it is today. We were unsure. To this day, the average person does not know what the texture of lunar dust really is. The average person is clueless. Well, contrary to popular belief, it is not fluffy sand or dust. It is actually made of minerals in tiny, tiny shards of glass made by meteorite impacts over many, many, many millennia. And so what that means is that lunar dust is actually sharp and abrasive and clingy. In fact, the astronauts complained about this constantly, that even wiping the dust wouldn't dust it off. It would actually just attach to their hands. Lunar dust is clingy and abrasive. However, a company called Icon out of Texas believes this might actually be advantageous in order to use lunar regolith in actually creating concrete and making its own concrete. You see, putting a base on the moon is actually far more difficult than putting a base on Earth. For one, we don't have the atmosphere to burn up meteorites. They have way more small meteorites that are hitting all the time. Higher radiation. And believe it or not, did you know that there are moonquakes, earthquakes on the moon all the time? Most people don't know this. And so the challenge to building a moon base was varied. And this company, Icon, is proposing a multi-storied, kind of a pineapple-looking egg shape with petals coming off of it. And those petals coming off of it serve multiple purposes. Number one, it provides moments of diffusion of space radiation. B, it provides moments in interspersed moments where they could actually deflect meteorites. Along with that, it's a double shell casing between an internal base that would actually be shipped on the SpaceX's Starship and actually deposited into the middle of this petal-shaped and structure, and then they would pack it in with loose lunar regolith. So it had the actual concrete outside, which would be solid, and then would actually have a buffer of loose regolith, and then the moon base would pack right into the double shell theory. So this is currently the working theory by Icon. I really dig the technology. There, you've got it in the comments. Boom. Let me put it in the comments here for those who are in other channels. There you go. If you care about what is really brewing, there's a great thumbnail of that right there of what is the most likely outcome for our first moon base for manned missions to the moon. Okay, here we go. And believe it or not, one other moon news article, boom, boom, is art imitating life or life imitating art or art imitating life again on the moon. This is Inception, and I think you know where I'm going with this. So first off, Space Force on Netflix comes out with Steve Carell, and it's somewhat funny. And it's chuckleable. I wouldn't say LOL, but it's pretty chuckleable. And we all kind of laughed at this the show Space Force. And then, of course, Trump, of course, had launched his own Space Force. So what's coming first here? We're not even sure. And then the Netflix show actually featured the Chinese racing against humans to put the Chinese base on the moon. And there was this little battle between Americans and Chinese of basically whose moon base was the best, and then they kind of destroyed it. And lo and behold, in real life, the Chinese have announced their own moon base at the same time that we are launching our moon base. In short, the Chang 5 probe has returned from the moon with about 2 kilograms of its own lunar regolith and kind of moon dust, and they're figuring out what they're going to do for a moon base. It was a joint venture with the European Space Agency as well. And they're not offering any specific details, but they know that they have Chang 6, 7, and 8 missions coming up immediately. Fun fact about China, China was the third country to put a manned mission orbiting the Earth, only the third, and that was in 2003. And no other country has done it other than America, Russia, and China. Fun fact about that. But they are also planning their own lunar mission. And it seems to me that this is following a little too closely to what we've seen on Netflix. So what is real anymore? I don't know. But I am interested in the competition to bring people and to create basically a spacefaring civilization, because that is the security of the species. And our last piece of other news, crypto is not doing an ICO, an initial coin offering. Crypto is doing an IPO, a normal initial public offering. Let's talk about that. So very briefly, my friends, an interesting crypto IPO to watch. In short, we talked about cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin is kind of taking off again, and it'll pull back. It was up to 23,000. It's down to 21,000. I have to look at it again. It's probably in the $22,000 range. And we said yesterday that this was happening because institutional investors and not speculators were getting involved. Right now, the price of Bitcoin is being driven by institutional investors, and this is a sign that they're using it as a hedge against other markets. It used to be that you would be in the markets, and then you'd have a variety of hedges, like gold. That would be its own hedge, or real estate, that would be its own hedge, or treasury bills, that would be its own hedge. And these are all hedges against each other because they all react to market forces in different ways. Well, cryptocurrency offered a different type of hedge because it's its own asset class that can actually grow at a certain rate. It's its own currency that can actually be exchanged. At least Bitcoin is the most established, though there are others that I've used. But now that Bitcoin itself is stabilizing as a currency, institutions are buying up other forms of Bitcoin, of cryptocurrency, to actually stabilize their investments as against what are other known investment classes. So this is what's driving the price of Bitcoin right now. So Coinbase is the most publicly available, the most easily used cryptocurrency converter out there. And the prices are a little high relative to cryptocurrency. In short, it shouldn't cost any money to exchange cryptocurrency through the immutable ledger, but those technologies are often difficult to use and utilize. So Coinbase has been around for years. I use it regularly. I check it nearly daily on my phone. I can actually exchange money from Bitcoin to what's known as USDC, basically what's known as a stable coin that's based on the US dollar, but it's not actually US dollars. And then I can exchange it back and forth and kind of day trade or swing trade without any real repercussions because it's money that we've earned from some of the Bitcoin craze. So what's going on is that Coinbase is making a huge move, and it's not doing an ICO. There was a lot of scam coins or altcoins that came out with initial coin offerings, and we see this all the time, still today. Floyd Mayweather actually launched his own coin, and it was kind of like a sketchy deal. They're actually doing an IPO, and it's super interesting to watch. It's not trading advice, but I would recommend you watch the IPO for two things. Before the IPO, watch for what institutions purchase stock before it goes public. This is a big sign of how much institutions are trusting or hoping for an established cryptocurrency presence in the normal markets. The other thing to watch is how the public reacts and purchases or does not purchase after the IPO to get an idea of what the public faith is of cryptocurrency. So it'll be an interesting thing. They haven't announced a date yet, but if you're interested, I certainly am watching the Coinbase IPO for what the public thinks. So there you have it. That is your morning's other news. Let's talk about the 4 tips of do this, not that. for coaching. Let's do this. So as I said, Heather Pinchelli, the lovely Heather Pinchelli, who just jumped on and comments and then crashed to bed. It's 3 a.m. where she's at. She's on the West Coast and she's driving her kids back home. Drove through the night. She is wanting to be present for her kids and taking care of them. And she's got a coaching business and she's got an adoption business, and she does really well as a boss girl, really, but just as a boss, she's just really doing life well. So she called yesterday and she said, hey, I've been paying for this coach, and they've been in my life, and there were several flags about the direction they were advising me, and so I just needed other input. As any smart person does, get multiple people's input. You want a horde of advisors in your life. And she said, hey, listen, I'm doing a few things, and I want to know what's your advice on X, Y, and Z. And we ended the conversation thinking, you know what, I might not be the coach for her, because she's trying to do a specific type of coaching that I would say is probably not my wheelhouse. But she was basically saying this. She's been paying a coach, and they've been spending weeks and weeks and weeks trying to write the perfect webinar script. And then every time they get on a call, it always kind of takes a new direction. And then the other thing she was concerned about is that she's got a cache of resources that she's about to throw at Instagram and Facebook ads and different sort of paid ads, which she's perfectly willing to do. If anything, Heather has always been a decisive person, and she is willing to pull the trigger if the ROI is there. And so I applaud her as just an awesome CEO and boss of her own world. It's fantastic. So I want to give you the quick, do this, not that, 4 quick tips. And we're not even going to go into like a teaching or context. I'm literally just going to give these to you, because this is what I said to Heather, and I advise it to you too. And then if you join the Facebook Goals and Gratitude group, I will actually share my top secret Spark integrated product rollout plan that you should model. And we're going to share that there. And I promised it to Heather. I'll give it to you. Heather, I got it right there for you. Boom. Okay, so here we go. So her first thought was, should I write the perfect webinar? Don't write the perfect webinar. Instead, do this. Do start putting your face out there with dozens of webinars, dozens of shows. Why have I done 102 shows? Several reasons, but the main reason is, do I actually have a message? Do I actually have something to teach? Do I actually know what I go around and tell people? I know this and so. Well, great. Whether or not you have coaches here or clients here or businesses here, can you actually get on and teach your framework? When someone says, okay, well, what's unique about you? Teach your framework. In fact, Heather said, she does a lot of relationship coaching, and her brand is leave that guy. No, this is not for those who are being abused and who are petrified of that brand. So if they're petrified, a lot of people who are being abused, they have abusive males or husbands or overbearing partners in their lives who look at their phone. And if you follow a brand called Leave That Guy and an abuser sees that, of course that's going to blow back on you. That's not her target audience. Her target audience is single gals that keep re-entering the dating market with real duds of guys, or abusive guys in the dating market, or just guys that are holding them back. So she speaks to single, straight women, or even not even single, straight women. It could even be single homosexual men, gay men, who are dating men who are holding them back. And she has a framework called Leave That Guy. Now, I'm not the target audience there, but I recognize the value of that audience. So let's get that right first. But the question then would come to Heather, do you have a framework for helping me leave that guy? And Heather needs to answer that in her brain. Do I actually have a framework? Do I have a way to assist you? This is why in Spark, we call everything freedom frameworks. We want to challenge ourselves. Do we have tools and training specific to the problem we're promising to solve? So we call them freedom frameworks, because you can grab that framework, insert your own context, and walk it out. Spark your vision, ignite your success, explode your significance, radiate purpose. Have clarity of vision, execute on that vision, make it about other people, and then reflect on your learnings, and you cycle up. Yes, we've got a framework for that. And then within each of these, Spark Vision has its own framework. Ignite Success has its own framework, and so on. So instead of writing the perfect webinar where you've got to say everything right and think through everything right, or it's structured just right, I say don't do that, do this. Put your face out there with 100 webinars, 100 Facebook Lives, 100 interviews. Start doing TikToks on how to leave that guy. Start doing Instagram stories on how to leave that guy. Start doing posts and do dozens of them to test yourself. Do I actually have a framework to give someone for my message? That's tip number one. Don't write the perfect seminar. Instead, do put yourself out there in front of dozens, if not hundreds of people to circle back and say, I actually know what I'm talking about. And it doesn't have to take forever. I've kind of taken the whole year to hit 102 episodes of this show. You don't have to do that. You could do this in a much shorter period of time. Number two, don't spend thousands of dollars on your ad budget. Don't do that. You don't need to launch your coaching business by spending thousands on your ad spend. You'll do it later anyway. But if you have if you've put together a war chest to launch your coaching business, whether that's $5,000 or $50,000, $500,000, don't come out of the gate with a crazy ass ad spend, especially if you don't know your message. So don't spend all your money on an ad spend. Instead, do this. Spend dozens, if not hundreds of hours with your target client base. And I include doing lives. If you can spend dozens, if not hundreds of hours with your target client base and get to know what's in their head, then you can spend $1,000, $10,000 on an ad spend, and you know it's targeted. You know the messaging is on point. Why? Because you are in the psychology of your people. And the reason I'm waving my phone at you, I think you should buy coffee. Instead of spending thousands on ad spend, I think you should spend hundreds of coffee, lunches, dinners, small focus groups with your target audience and get in their head. And the reason I'm waving my phone at you is as you're talking to them and they're dropping bombs on you and they say, in Heather's case, her coaching is about how to leave someone well, how to do it well, and make them a partner in your journey. That's her thing, right? But it's an inflammatory messaging brand. Leave that guy. It sounds really inflammatory. It is. It catches your attention. And then you start asking, how do I do that? So if she's sitting with someone who's considering leaving that guy and that gal says this, this, and this, she needs to immediately pull up her phone and go, hey, leave that guy. Boss girl's out there. Let me tell you something. I was just talking to a gal and we're going to say her name is Jane Smith. I was just out there talking to Jane Smith and here was her issue. And then here's how I advised her. That's how you create content. So if you can spend, and that content then becomes shareable. That's free organic ranking. And she didn't have to spend thousands of dollars on that. And then if she sees that one out of the hundreds of her videos, one or two or three of them really took off with comments and engagements and shares, if she found that, then dang, that's the thing she should dump $1,000 of her ad spend into. And then she should have her link right there. And her link right there, and people can click that, and then they'll buy her products or purchase a coaching session with Heather. Dude, money much better spent. You cannot throw money at the marketing issue. You've got to make sure you know your messaging. How do you know your messaging? Messaging is fancy Band-Aid solutions for not knowing your audience. Spend hours and hours with your audience. Hold a free webinar tonight. Hold a free webinar and say, listen, if you've been thinking about leaving that guy and you need advice, hop on my webinar. Here's my link. It'll be completely anonymous. You don't need, change the name on your Zoom link, change the name on your in your Facebook group, whatever the Facebook Live groups that they have. Change your name, hide your profile, whatever. And we're going to cover your questions. So ask the questions here. Do that instead. Do not come out of the gate spending thousands. You will spend thousands. Tim Madden, who a guy I have a huge amount of respect for, he spends a lot of good money on his retargeting ads. He's got that dialed in, man. I'd love to learn from him on that, but it didn't start that way. He spent hundreds of hours with his target client getting into their head. Do this, not that. That's number two. Number three, do not pigeonhole yourself in a single message. Heather came to me and saying, well, should I do that or should I do parenting teen girls? Both very hungry audiences, both need to be served. Relationship audience is a little inundated, which also means there's a large market for it. The parenting teen girls is, it's an underserved market, though. There's a lot of teen girls being parented out there. Grant, which should I do? Well, it's not an either or, and then you get pigeonholed by these messages. So don't get pigeonholed with a single message. Instead, do this. Think of your messages as product lines. Think of your messages as product lines. They're different target audiences. They need a different line of products. What are the line of products? And we'll cover the line of products in a second. Actually, that is number 4. We'll cover that line of products. But in short, you can get pigeonholed if you think, hey, I am the leave that guy coach. Okay, well, 2 years later, that's kind of tapered, and it might have a long tail, and you might have some products there, but you're like, it's feeling flat. Now what do I do? Oh, parenting teen girls. Well, that's just another product line. You do want to begin focusing on a particular product line, but you want your broader message to be you as coach. And you're welcome to have those product lines. You know, if you think about Brendan Burchard, is he the high performance coach? Well, yes. But he's also, what is this? The Millionaire Messenger coach. These are two separate product lines. The Millionaire Messenger and the HPX, or the high performance coaching, those two groups are two separate product lines with two separate Facebook groups and two separate email lists and two separate free books, right? So consider these things. Don't consider yourself as I'm a single message person. Bunk that. Instead, consider them product lines. Now, you got to focus on one and launch it well and make sure it's supported. Make sure you've got staff for that. 100%. You got to do that. Okay, that's number 3. Number 4, don't have a one income only model. Don't have an income only model. Heather asked, hey, listen, I'm going to be doing these high-end 8-week cohorts. You could do that. And that was it. And then what happens to the client after that? And they're high end. They're like $3,000 for 2 months, $1,500 a month. That's some high end coaching. And in the coaching space, that's a high end product line, or that's a higher price tag. Instead, don't just get stuck on that. I'm not saying get rid of it. Don't get rid of it. But don't have that alone. Instead, do this. Have a tiered income model, or here's the product line. Have a freemium product, a free report, a free email, a free video. Brendan Burchard's fantastic about doing like a free 20-minute value-added video. Number 2, have an affordable course or tools that they can purchase a book like Brendan Burchard's books, or they could purchase a course like the course, then have a moderate level product. Maybe the course, maybe it's like a $20, $25 book, but maybe it's a $200, $250 course. And then last but not least, have group training. That's a little higher price tag, but it does take some time. And you should not be the person on that all the time. Maybe it's once a month. Maybe it's twice a month on webinars. And last but not least, have an expensive one-to-one. Expensive. Your time is valuable. And for you to accomplish your mission of helping people, in Heather's case, leave that guy. There's a lot of people in crappy relationships that are holding their vision back. Well, if she goes 1-1, and she spends an hour with people, and she only has time to do, let's say, 5 a week, she can only do 20 a month. That means she can only do 240 a year. She's only affecting 240 people a year? Well, what if she was doing 10 a night? She could 10x that by doing groups, and she could make a massive impact and help people. Her one-on-one should be very expensive. So expensive that if someone writes that check, it's worth it for both parties. And that money then can be used as a war chest to help the masses who are still trying to leave that guy with the books or the training or the material. And then last but not least, an annual gathering, whether that's a seminar or workshop. She's planning on doing a cross-country tour, which you could totally do. But you want to make sure that you tier these products and capture and each one of these become their own business. Think of them, if you're a real estate investor, think of each property, each product line as its own property. And it's got to have marketing. You got to get people to it. It's got to have an intro. It's got to have these product tiers. So if you can think of them not as a single message, but as a product line, and then you could think of them as what I call the integrated product rollout plan. If you can have these tier products, then what you have actually is its own self-contained business. And you can actually assign, good morning, Jennifer. Thanks for checking in. I hope you're doing great. We're covering basically how to be an infopreneur. And this is the path to becoming an infopreneur. So if you can actually create this integrated product rollout plan, then you've actually got a path for someone to engage with that brand if that's the thing for them. Or if they're parenting, in Heather's case, parenting a teen daughter, do you have an integrated product rollout plan for that? And when you have an integrated product rollout plan, you should also have the margin in there that you could hire someone to steward that brand who is passionate about that topic only. Heather's passionate about several topics. Grant's passionate about many topics. I need point people over each of my product lines. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to solve my who. I'm trying to find people who can run each of my product lines and grow it. We got Spark Sites. We got a team right now that we're trying to hand the reins off to so they can manage it and grow it. And then it's not just about Spark training. It's going to be about Spark Recharge. And I'm going to build out that integrated product rollout plan. And that is going to be its own product line. And I'm going to put someone over that to grow that, to maintain it and grow it. And then we're going to do the same with all of our other product lines. Marissa's going to have Spark Explore. That's what we're doing. We're doing that. This is what I recommend for you too. So here are the 4. Let me review, and then you can stop this video, bookmark it, come back to it later, or we can talk about it in the Goals and Gratitude group. Number 1, don't write the perfect webinar. Do put your face out there and put your content out there, and doing webinars and lives all the time to start shaping your message. Number 2, don't spend thousands on your ad spend right now. Instead, do spend dozens, if not hundreds of hours in front of your target client. Don't spend thousands on ads. Do spend hundreds, dozens, if not hundreds of hours with across the table from your target client to workshop your message. Don't pigeonhole yourself into a single message. Instead, do think of your messages as product lines. Number 4, don't have a one income model. Instead, do create a tiered income model, freemium affordable courses and tools, group training, and expensive one-on-ones, and then maybe once a year seminars. The trick is you don't want to be caught in commitments that you can't keep going forever. Does that make sense? Listen, I hope you've gotten a lot out of this. I know this was a little early. I was ready to rock and ready to go, and I needed to get out of the gate, and we got a ton of other stuff we're working on today. But play this video back. If you know someone who's trying to get involved in infopreneuring, share this video, tag them in the comments, or just join the conversation and follow up with questions in the Goals and Gratitude group. I hope you are doing fantastic. I hope you are killing it out there. Remember the mission today: igniting lives of explosive significance, starting